and you look at fighters, quality of life outside of fighting and everything like that. The Ali Act was all about that. I think Coker realizes where his place is in MMA. I mean, when you think about it, you've got the PFL, the LFA, you've got these local and regional and somewhat national outlets. But I think that us as UFC fans, we look at the UFC as the pinnacle.
Yep.
But there are great. There's there's Ryzen. There's
in Asia. I get one is dominant over there.
I mean, they got Demetrius Johnson. But the problem is it's like that.
Again, a guy on the backside of his career, though.
Yeah, and that's the issue that we're running into. I think with Coker, I get it. There was talks of him signing Anderson Silva and. Looking at these fighters that some of them are past their prime, some of them I feel like could fight for another maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You look at someone like Anthony Rumble Johnson, he kind of got, out of the UFC at the absolute worst time. He had that fight with Daniel Cormier, and Daniel Cormier, did pretty easy work with him. But I just feel like when you look at the roster of Bellator fighters, I'll be honest with you, I can name very few fighters on their roster, and that's a serious problem. But I also think when, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, the UFC just announced that the Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway card is going to be on ABC. ABC is a division partner of ESPN, so it makes sense.
Yep.
With Bellator, they've had a couple slots where they're on, primetime TV, but it's never enough. I mean, how much press and advertising can you do when your fighters on the card aren't well known?
Yeah, you got to give people something different, something they're not seeing in the UFC, and it's just right now it's not that.
What's crazy to me is that Coker goes on to say, "There's no doubt in my mind that we have the best light heavyweight division." I mean, you've got Ryan Bader. But again, it's a former UFC guy.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the light heavyweight division in the UFC, it's looking better than ever, even with John Jones leaving.
Right.
So it's like
there's murderers in there.
Yeah.
You want to see, Thiago Santos. You want to see.
You got Dominic Reyes in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of those fighters, and I think the only way to solve this would be a Bellator versus UFC winner, takes all type of thing. I mean, I know that would never happen. Just like the tournament styles will never happen in the UFC. I know Coker, has processed doing that before and everything like that in tournaments and Grand Prix and everything. But there's a reason why the UFC bought out Pride and just kind of did away with it.
Bellator and the UFC kind of need each other.
Do you think that there's ever a time where Dana comes to Scott and says, "Hey, take this money and go away"?
No, I don't. I think he needs Bellator. I think he needs, the competition. Yeah, he needs a place where fighters, come up and he can bring over the next Ben Askren or somebody, and create a big. I mean, like Ben Askren's career in the UFC was what? 3 fights? 2 fights?
Yeah, 3 fights, He
so,
won the Robbie Lawler fight.
He sold a lot of pay-per-views.
He did.
He was compelling.
He did.
Everybody wanted to see this guy come over.
Yeah.
So I think the UFC needs that.
Yeah.
There's more fighters than there are spots in the UFC. So they need to come from somewhere.
That is true. You make a great point there.
They're not going to come from these little regional.
Right.
They can, and they're not all going to come from the Contender Series or, Ultimate Fighter.
Right. Right.
It'd be nice, but it's not going to happen. There's more. They can only do so much with those shows and build people so big that way where they need Bellator.
You make me run right into the next topic. Dana White recently said in an interview with the Schmo that he's planning on having the Ultimate Fighter. It was going to be spring 2021. Now he's leaning more towards summer 2021. Now he hasn't announced.
I can't wait.
I know. And that's what
spring, Dana.
I know. That's what drives me nuts is like now is the time to strike when the iron's hot. I can't think of a better matchup than Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. You do that for an Ultimate Fighter, I think it does record
anything
numbers.
With Colby Covington, people are going to watch.
Anything. And, I was aboard the Colby Covington hype train when I suggested in my own mind before I had the show and a platform to say it, Covington and Woodley doing an Ultimate Fighter. I mean, regardless, Colby Covington sells. Dana White saying that they're waiting until summer 2021. Do you think that that's contract disputes, or do you think that's production issues? What do you say to that, Bill?
I'm guessing it's production issues and booking that they're probably trying to figure out because they're doing all the fights at the UFC Apex right now, where they film it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there's a lot of moving pieces that we don't even know what's going on behind the scenes.
I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
Oh boy!
I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want you to tell me the last Ultimate Fighter teams that you remember, the two coaches. What is like that? Hits your mind?
Junior Dos Santos, was he Brock? No. Oh, no. Cormier and Stipe.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I brought that up to Ace when we were doing the podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said,
Was that the last season? I think that was.
So that's the thing, is that he jogged my memory and made me remember that season, because to me, the last one that I remember as being entertaining and being something to actually watch was Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber. That was the last one.
Oh, but what about TJ and
They were a part of that. So they were a part, if my
and
memory...
Colby Covington? They coached. That was a
with
great season.
TJ and Cody Garbrandt?
Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Now, they coached together, and that one was memorable.
And it built up to their fight. And
That
it
is
was,
true.
and,
That is true.
That was a great season.
Yes.
I thought.
That
Because there
was-
was a lot of animosity between the two coaches.
So what happened was, I think it built from the Uriah Faber and Connor, and then later on down the road. But to me, that stood out.
Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey was good.
That one was a good one too. The ones that I remember are the ones built on beef, built on rivalry. Like
Yes.
DC and Stipe.
Yeah. That was kind of just like, I love both those guys.
Yeah.
So watching it was kind of anticlimactic and almost like they were like buddies joking around with each other.
They're too
and-
nice to each other.
Yeah, they're too nice.
Like, you can't, when I look at the Ultimate Fighter and I think, what are you going to do, Dana, in 2021 to really get people to watch? For one, you've got ESPN Plus, which is going to be huge if you throw it on there. I would guess it's going to go on there as almost like a Netflix subscription, like the season releases. I hope that they release them one by one, and they still do that. I can't see it going to TV, though. I can't see it going to, cable TV. I think that with this partnership with ESPN Plus, you put the seasons up there, or the episodes one by one.
Yeah.
You go week by week. But to me, it's the story that sells it.
For me too. That's what I
know-
liked about that show. And when it went off and they just went to the Contender Series,
Yeah.
it wasn't as compelling for me because I wasn't getting the background stories and
Right.
finding out. I remember watching Tony Ferguson on the Ultimate Fighter and stuff.
During the Brock Lesnar season. Yeah. I look at some of the best ones. I look at Tito and Ken Shamrock. That to me was like mind-blowing. You look at Chuck Liddell and Tito. That was another good one. There's so many seasons that stick out, but then there's ones that don't. And it's the Brazil one. The Brazil one, I was like, I could do without.
I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah, that's a language barrier
Yeah.
on the U.S. side, obviously. And, to me, I understand going international and based on that. But I look at, if you really want to blow the roof off in 2021, don't do it. You could do it in Abu Dhabi, or you could do it at the Apex. But to me, there's more of a bubble of containment in Abu Dhabi. You send Colby and Jorge there. You do a 6-8 week, or I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Ultimate Fighter was really only 6 to 8 weeks long, wasn't it?
I don't. I think it was at least 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But I can't remember.
Yeah, and they just kind of pitted fighters up against each
Because
other.
they
and then-
would always gap it out at the end until
Yeah.
that fight.
Yeah.
So
I think you do it for summer 2021, and then you try and draw it out for as long as you can, and you book Colby and Jorge, coach versus coach, as an end of the year pay-per-view.
I'm in.
I
no
mean,
matter.
that to me, it doesn't get much
Yeah.
bigger than that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I
because
think
you have the two of the if you do those two guys, you have two of the biggest shit talkers that are just the best at it.
Yeah.
And it will be, and that's the reason we like watching it is because we like fights,
Yeah.
right? And that's what was beautiful about Cody and TJ. It was a fight every week.
every
like you were
week.
getting a fight.
Yeah.
You're getting the fights, and you were getting a fight between those guys.
Yeah.
So it was like a beautiful season.
To me, it's like it's the definition of a men's soap opera,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it. Like the Days of Our Lives, like men's trash talk. Like I love it, and I think it helps double, if not triple, the pay-per-views, because when you look at Cody and TJ, they hated each other. I mean, it was neck on the throat. You're
Yep.
a snake, this and that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I can't wait till that fight happens.
Yeah.
This is going to be great.
Well,
it just
and
got
it's-
you so hyped for it.
It's great storytelling. I mean, that's why the
Mm-hmm.
WWE did well for so long. During the Raw is War era, it was building it up, and then you have that explosion, and then building it up again, and it never ends. With the Ultimate Fighter, you have that. Outside of that, though, you really don't have it unless you have a great social media presence,
Mm-hmm.
unless you have a great press conference, which right now is extremely tough to do.
Yeah.
But to me, that is the ticket. Like, that is the way to really make the UFC explode in 2021. I just wish it was happening a little sooner.
I guess we just got to wait.
Yeah, we just got to
and
wait.
The good news is there's a lot of great fights between now and then, too. So we're going to.
Yeah, there's so many great fights. You know, January is.
But does that mean Masvidal won't fight until after that season? Like between that, he'll wait that long for his next fight?
That's what's crazy to me is that it's been a while since Jorge's been in. His last fight was against Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
That was 2020. But it's like you're going to wait a whole calendar year to fight again. I mean, but it kind of does benefit him because Jorge isn't a spring chicken. He's an older fighter. And, I look at it like how many fights does Jorge have left in him compared to how many fights does Colby have left in him.
Yeah, I didn't like that Usman fight. I know he kind of took it on like late notice,
it
was in Abu Dhabi.
Notice.
So, he had to adjust to going over there. It didn't work out well for him.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy you want to see him fighting at his best.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is the way we get the best out of Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah. I think that this is really they've trained before. If you haven't watched the YouTube videos, I highly recommend them. There's actually a video of Colby and Jorge wrestling in a college dorm like back in the day. And
because they were like best friends, right?
Yeah,
and
they trained at
they were the same.
ATT together. I mean, and looking at it now, you want to talk about rivalries. You talk about Cody and TJ. You talk about the Jones and DC, which we're going to talk about that again in a second. But you look at Colby and Jorge, you can't build a better script. It's literally like it's a movie at this point. You know, the villain versus the hero, really, because everybody looks at Covington as this heel, as this villain, and I get it completely.
Yeah.
To me, it's cringy, though. How much do you think?
Some of it is cringy and some of it is just outright hilarious.
Yeah. Do you think how much of it, percentage-wise, is an act compared to real life? From what I've heard on like other podcasts, we're so distant from it. It sounds like a lot of it is an act. Yes,
a lot of it. But a lot of times those people acting, they're believing part of their act too, right?
Yeah.
So
and I mean, you are who you become, sort of thing. Like you look at Henry Cejudo, the king of cringe. He got that one little dose of spotlight and he just blew it up. And I think Covington did the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised though. There's videos on Colby Covington's Instagram of him with girls in the background. Do you think he pays them? Do you think he pays them?
I have no idea. I mean, I think like some of it, like aren't some of them on a boat and stuff? I mean, I think if you go to a beach and invite a bunch of girls, say, come out on my yacht,
and I'll let you hold the bell.
Yeah, so I don't think he has to pay him. Plus, he's cool. He's probably got the belt he's walking around with. Or,
it's the glitz and the glamour.
Yeah.
So moving on to
MAGA hat.
Yeah, the MAGA hat. That's a whole other different thing. Like it's like, man, you are really going towards your fan base.
Yeah, blue suit.
Yeah. Going on next to our next topic. Speaking of rivalries, it doesn't get much bigger than Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. UFC 182 was 6 years ago. And of course, Jon Jones can't help but run his mouth towards DC. He did it again. He tends to delete tweets a lot, which I think is I'm guilty of it. Have you ever posted something on social media and you delete it after?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't remember. I don't post a lot on social media.
What about you, Alex? Have you posted stuff on social media and then deleted it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm notorious for it. I will get in my feelings and I'll tweet something, and then as quick as 5 minutes later, I delete it. I'm like, stop being a bitch, just delete it and move on. Jon Jones tends to do that too. He decided to post on social media. He deleted a tweet with a single laughing emoji, which that could be anything.
Yeah.
But he posted, Stipe is your rival, I'm your superior. He also posted, don't confuse a season with forever. And one other thing, he said, on this day in history, I created a hater forever. Obviously, if you're an MMA fan, if you're a UFC...
On this day in history? Oh, so he's referring back to
he's
6 years ago?
6 years ago. I don't think you can get a bigger and better rivalry than Jones and DC. I'd say the only thing that compares to it is Khabib and Conor. Really, to me, Jones and DC set the tone for the pinnacle, the mountaintop of a great rivalry. And 6 years later, it's still going on. It's nuts. I don't think it will ever end.
Yeah, no. I mean, John's got to let it go.
Yeah.
He should be poking at whoever, if he wants Stipe's belt because he's moving heavyweight, you poke at them.
Yeah.
Because it's just, to me, it's boring to go back at Daniel Cormier. He's retired. He was great. he almost had you in that last fight. I thought he was winning.
He did.
I think a lot of guys have almost had John Jones.
Yep.
Including Dominic Reyes.